Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Upper Room. I am Eugene Holden. I am your host today and every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. And the Upper Room is where we talk about things that are happening in life, but also how we deal with those things in life from an upper consciousness, from a raised level of thinking, from the upper room. And so today I have my dear friend, my dear compatriot, my dear partner in life. Well, not that life partner, but partner in this thing called spiritual walk, the Reverend Jacquelyn Edwards.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. A good God morning to you.
Yeah. Turn that off. Rice and beans. I like that one. Whew, man. Good morning. So again, this is the Reverend Jacquelyn Edwards, and Rev, we've been friends for a long time. We've been on this path together for a long time, and I know you to be someone who is committed to living life from principle, and not only that, but also to help others to get to show them the way by being an example, number one, but also to teach people the way on how they can better their lives or whatever it is, and you would probably do a much better explanation of this. So what is it that you are here on the planet doing? And then I have a follow-up question, of course.
I am here on the planet doing. So and in why? General, I am Reverend Jacquelyn Edwards. I describe myself as a born-again religious scientist, meaning that when I got to this place called Religious Science or Science of Mind, currently Centers for Spiritual Living, it just gelled. There was a synchronicity that has been growing for all of the last 35, 40 years. And that synchronicity has both given me a solid spiritual foundation. It's given me the opportunity to meet fabulous people like you. It has also become the ribbon or the thread that weaves through my work as a minister, as a teacher, as a counselor, as a speaker, as a group facilitator, all the things in one way, shape, form, or fashion have this idea that Olodumare, God, if you will, is all there is. There's nothing else, regardless of appearances or opinions. And by definition, that includes me and all that there is, all of life, not just sentient life, but all of life. Now that's the high bar. That's the la-di-da of it, right? That's the wonderliciousness of it. That's the power and the presence of it. And then there's everyday life. So a big part of what I'm up to, particularly right now, is weaving this knowledge, this understanding, not just weaving it into everyday life for myself, but weaving it into everyday life, again, at a deeper level, I'm going to say, than what I earlier described in all of my work. And the thumbnail example I would give for that would be, for a very, very long time, I had the life experience of when I'm living, I'm going to say 100%. We know we're never living 100% from any place. But when I'm living 100% from my spiritual principle, and God is good and life is good, and let me make sure I got my tithing going on, et cetera, my life is magnificent. And so I'm going to say that's actually, I'm going to go this way. It's my right. I know it's stage left, but that's kind of on the right. And I'm saying that metaphorically because there's the RIGHT. That's the right way to walk the world. However, there's all this stuff going on out here, which also resonates with my pre-religious science life, my pre-deep dive into spirituality, which is look at all the injustice going on in the world. And for, I'm going to say probably the last 5 years, I've been looking at how to marry those two in a way that works. And by a way that works, I mean to be able to apply my spiritual principle to my social justice life and work. Because initially, what would happen is every time I turn from the right to the left, and I mean that both literally and metaphorically, my life, especially my money, that's where spirit taps me. Spirit taps people in different ways. Some people get tapped in health. Some people get tapped in relationships. I get tapped on my money. My money get funny. You know, that's not cool. That's not okay. So this last, I'm going to say 2 to 3 years has been about and continues to be about going to the upper room, saying and having a deep dive conversation with spirit that is predecessed on this idea that we are all here for a purpose, and that social justice piece is very much part of my purpose. So, okay, spirit, what we doing? And the answer was both not was, but is, because it's continuing to unfold, both deep and simple, which takes me to, you know, that situation with Yeshua and the disciples. And one of them, I can't remember which one it was, said, yo, dude, this is a hard teaching, right? It took me right there, because the answer is love. The answer is love everybody.
Right.
The answer is love one another. The answer is Big Red too. Not and once I was willing, you know, that's one of the main foundations of what I teach is if we are just willing, and of course I didn't originate that, but it's a piece that I find to be both useful and effective if we're just willing. So out of my willingness to try love, all kinds of things have been showing up. Martin Luther King wrote a book on love. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote a book on love that is built around the civil rights movement. There's a quote that I just used last Sunday from Bell Hooks, where she says, and she's actually quoting someone else, that we are called upon to love each other, not just unconditionally, but to have a mad love for each other. So interestingly enough, landing in that love space is also unfolding the work and what the work looks like. It's unfolding the when, as we are moving into this election cycle that we are moving into, which may be one of the most important in the country since 2016, or the 2020. It's an important election cycle that we get to anchor ourselves in our values. We get to anchor ourselves in our principles, and we get to anchor ourselves in vote for who speaks for you. Vote for who represents what you are representing in the world. I'm thinking I'm going to be quiet now, but I know that was a rather long answer. And It speaks to what I'm up to, and it speaks to my growing and expanding, and most importantly, deepening ministry.
Hmm.
I am complete.
Well, for now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let's
For
do it
now.
that way. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And I know before we went live, you were talking about going in a direction, in the direction that you went. And in my response was, it's all good. And this is what the upper room is about, is looking at current events, right? Um, with social justice and across whatever it is across the board, and how do we show up from the upper consciousness, and as you said, it really is all about love. Now, I know there may be some people out there that think that love might be wishy-washy or mamby-pamby or whatever it is, or soft. No, man, this is the love that we're talking about is that love that has created all that there is, right? When I was doing a meditation a number of years ago, the question for a number of days in this meditation was, what breathes this breath? And it took a few days for the answer to be revealed to me. For me, it is that love is what breathes this breath. My next question was, why? Why does love breathe this breath? So that love may experience itself through me. Then it just kept expanding, right? So it is all about the love. And you were mentioning something, Jacquelyn, where um, talking about getting out to vote, and this is an important cycle, and to vote for those who have our interest in mind. But and so when you didn't say it exactly like that, um, but in hearing that, and this is the interesting thing for me, is that because we talk about in CSL, a world that works for everybody. Well, what if what works for one person really, and they love this, and that's where they are, but it doesn't work, for example, me. Here is a great example, right? I have a neighbor 2 or 3 doors down who frequently flies their Confederate flag, right? Now, I am to love them, in which I do, but I also haven't had the willingness to go knock on the door and say, listen, I appreciate your flag. Can you tell me more about why? Now, what's my question in all of that? How do we, as a global community, come together knowing that when we are all together, when we are all in that, oh, this is what love means for me, oh, and let me spread that love. How can we do this as a global community? I guess that's the question.
So, first of all, don't go knock on those people's door. That's none of your business why they flying their flag.
I want to
And
know.
and if the question is, I want to know what this whole Confederate flag flying thing is all about, then ask spirits, and you will get an answer, I promise. And where the intersection is when we touch and interact and be with and be among them, right? And again, I have to come back to the upper room, because the upper room directs us to come out from among them.
Yes.
Right? Come out from among them. You do not need to be in the gossip and the mix up and the mash up and the TikTok. That's not your place. Your place is to come out from among them. And as you do that, as you step into the upper room, and I always have to add that this has been a central element of how we as Black folks on the planet got over, is going to that upper room and finding that strength to then come out and walk the world knowing that Oludumare has got my back, right? So there's that piece. In the more, what I think we would be inclined to call practical, everyday aspect of the thing, that actually, oh, wait, it comes back to really the same thing of what is mine to do. And to your point of what works for person A may not work for person B, comes back to what do we mean by works? So that brings me to some words that we don't necessarily like to use in New Thought, like good and bad, right? Or good and evil and such. And I'm not even going to go into casting stones, right? Because we know about that too. Let them that, is without error cast the first stone. And that, I trust me, would not be me. And what I understand, not just believe, but although belief is pretty strong, but what I believe and understand is that arc that bends towards justice, that long arc that's long, that Martin Luther King quoted someone else talking about, but it bends towards justice. What that means is that ultimately, what is for the best and highest good of all prevails. Now I'm going to reach back because this is all spontaneous and I didn't get to prepare. So I'm going to reach back to a long time ago in my personal history for an example. I was a machinist apprentice. And one of the main project that I worked on during my 3-year apprenticeship was constructing valves. I shouldn't even say this in 2023, where we're understanding we need to tap down on fossil fuel. But back in, I'm not going to say when, back in then.
Back in the day.
Back in then, yes.
The 1900s.
Okay, I'm going to hit you when I see you. I was working on valves. We were making valves for the Alaska pipeline. Okay, so that gives you an idea about when we're talking about. So I was one of 2 or 3, 2.5, I'll say, and I'm not going to get into why of that, women in the apprenticeship program. And we always use the cranes. We always use the cranes, right? The men oftentimes look at the thing, oh, I think I can pick that up, and they pick it up and put it on the machine or whatever. But, I could look at the thing and go, yeah, no, where is that crane?
Right.
That is why they have cranes.
That's right.
That is why they have cranes in multiple sizes, little ones, big ones, whatever. Of course, now we're talking about good for the order. That's what we're talking about, right? So of course there was a bit of, that's why they don't belong here. They can't even pick stuff up. Look at how long it takes. I can knock out 3 parts in the time it takes her to do one because she's taking time to use the crane. Now, aside from the fact that that's a big exaggeration, it's more like maybe you can do 1.5 in the time, maybe 1 1/3 that it takes me to do one. Okay. My back is strong. The company, in an effort to make this work, because they had not good luck with women apprentices, meaning the harassment level was through the roof. And we won't even talk about Black women. I was absolutely that. I was one of two Black faces in the machine shop end of the house. So the company decided that for any weight, and I don't remember what it was, above a certain level, you were mandated to use the cranes, and you would get written up if you didn't.
Right.
Well, guess what happened? Sick time, back injuries, strained muscles, all of that took a nosedive.
Right.
Took a nosedive. So we don't have to figure out whether the thing is for the good of all or not. When we've done our work, when we've been to the upper room and not the ego, I love envisioning when there are always the people that, yeah, I don't feel like closing my eyes. I'm not really going to do this. And they have an instant. They have an instant, right? Envisioning, we're asking spirit to reveal to us that which is for our best and highest good. And they get an instant. And somehow, what they report as their vision is always exactly what they had been talking about before the visioning session.
Right.
Right? Okay. So I'm saying all of this to say that what is for the good of the order reveals itself. What is right is right. When we see something that harms others, we know whether you think that's for your best good or not, your harming others is not for the good of all, including you.
Right.
And I'm neither, a psychologist or a lawyer or any of those people who are charged with explaining why people do what they do. But I'm saying that right evidences itself. I'm saying it's not rocket science. And it is rocket science, but that's a conversation for another time.
Going back, it's not rocket science, but this is a hard teaching. Right? It's not rocket science. It's not all that difficult to see, boy, but is it a challenge to practice? Is it a challenge to practice?
And practice, it's not even that practice makes perfect when we're talking about spiritual practice, but practice makes whole. WHOLE. Practice brings us into alignment with the divine. Practice evidences itself as we're walking around in the world and we experience the synchronicity of the world. That is the evidence. The evidence, the faith thing, right? Faith is the evidence of things not seen. I don't have to see the thing, but I see the evidence of it. I see the way I walk in to order my coffee and the person that was just in an argument with the last customer looks at me and goes, "Hey, good morning. Right. How are you today?" Evidence.
Evidence, right. Practice makes whole. Not so much perfect, but here's the interesting thing about that word perfect. One of the definitions for the word perfect is whole. Right?
Look at that.
Yeah. And it's you hear the saying, practice makes perfect. And for years I've been saying, well, perfect practice makes perfect, because I can practice something, I can get good at it, right? But anyway, but practice makes whole. And it is about, about coming. What is mine to do? Who am I to be? What is mine to do in this situation here? And not be so concerned, not being so concerned about what's happening across town or across the nation or across the world. But let me come from the upper room. Let me come from my highest loving conscious self. And serving my purpose doesn't mean that it has to be a real big thing. Maybe my purpose is just to smile at that person who's going to take my order for the coffee.
Ashe.
Right.
I say good morning to the person that lives in the house with the Confederate flag.
Right. Well, you just
And
told me
they may not. I
don't
told you don't go knock on their door. I didn't tell you if you happen to see them in the street, if you're walking past. And
and
you may walk past them, say good morning, and not even know that that's the person that lives in the house with the Confederate flag.
well, here's the thing about it is I've talked with the person who lives there. This nice old guy who just walks so very slowly, and he looked at me and smiled and goes, "Damn, it's hard to get old," right? But we had such a nice connection, right? But that's his house, right? Yeah. But I still want to know. It's not that I want to know. I just want to understand,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't knocked on their door, so maybe I don't want to
So
understand.
if you've had a conversation, then you're now establishing a relationship
Right.
that will give way to the opportunity to have the conversation. And someplace in that conversation is what does it mean to him and what does it mean to you?
Right.
Which
Exactly.
probably a ballpark guess are very much two different things.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure of that. But again, it is not a not but again. Again, it is, you know, tapping into that inner room, that the upper room, that the sacred place of the Most High, and tapping into, okay, what is mine to do here? Who am I to be here in
Mm-hmm.
this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And living and always remembering to come from a place of love. It's
Right.
the interesting thing when we talk about love. Love, by definition, is unconditional,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are
And
some
again,
of the practice? I'm sorry, what?
no, I was just going to say, and even that is a perspective. Because if love was practiced unconditionally, unilaterally, Lord have mercy, Jesus, we would have a different thing going on out here. And we get to see it. We get to see it in Libya with the flooding, and we get to see it with the earthquake. We get to see people loving each other unconditionally. When people show up to help, they don't show up and go, well, I'm going to help you and
Right.
you, but not you. Right?
Which is an interesting thing, right? Because we have evidence. I'm going to stick to the USA for now, but we see it around the world. When there is a disaster of some sort, whatever it is, right? How people come together like that. My question then is, why do we wait for a disaster, right? Oh, maybe the earth, in her intelligence and everything else that is going on this earth, is happening so that, okay, these human beings learn to love by going through disasters. So let's create this and that. And no, I don't think that's it at all. But
Yeah, I don't think that's it either.
but it is an interesting thing to look at, that people come together when things are going wrong. But you know what? But we see it more and more on the smaller things. It doesn't have to be a disastrous event that's happening. I mean, just watching how people help people across the street, right? Or to cross the street, or let me help my brother out here who looks like he has not eaten in a day or two. Yeah, so these small things are going on. Yeah. So
I witnessed that with a young man. It just, cracked my heart. It was a by young, I'm going to say definitely under 25, possibly under 20, walking over to a homeless. I know the politically correct term today is unhoused or whatever we want to call it, but
it's homeless.
over to what we used to call a street person and asking him if he wanted, because they were right near some eatery. I don't remember which one. If he wanted, it was Whole Foods. That's what it was. It was Whole Foods. and asking him if he wanted to come inside and let him buy him some food.
Right.
Young man, young African-American man, dreadlocks and all. He was just touching. I don't believe that disasters, because so many of them are human generated, created. I'm going to use Libya as an example. The very first thought that came to mind was poor infrastructure.
Right.
Poor infrastructure. And yesterday there was an article in the New York Times, which I haven't had time to read, so I can't quote it, but the headline was something to the effect of, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of dams all over the world that have not been maintained. Maybe we need to take them down. Maybe they need to be removed. And I was just like, whoa, because in this social justice place that we're talking about, so many dams have been constructed around the world that displaced rather thousands, millions of people who were making a wonderful living where they were, who were sustaining themselves where they were. But dams were built that both interfered with all of that and then didn't take care of them. So back to, maybe this is not God in action that way, but there is this idea that whatever needs to happen for good to ultimately prevail is going to happen, because we teach hard teaching, no accidents, and that Olodumare is the good to which there's no opposite. And I'm going to be quiet on that note.
Well, seeing how our time is actually up,
Yes.
This is what I ask most of my guests. When I say most, because sometimes I forget to ask this question, but I'm remembering now. Jacquelyn Edwards, what would you like the people to know? What would you want to leave them with?
You got this. Whatever this is, you got this. You got this. There is that within each and every one of us that is an eternal and a perpetual yes. And as we tap on that, as we allow that to be our first step, then the second and the third and all of our subsequent steps are led, are guided, are directed in the direction of our best and highest good. And nobody said the road would be easy. But I can't believe that it brought me this far to leave me. I am complete.
Good. Jacquelyn Edwards, thank you for being here on the room. Doing this again.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Many blessings.
Thank you. Everybody, you've been tuned into the Upper Room. It happens every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also catch the recordings on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and whatever else I may have. All right, everybody. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessing. Thank you.